Hello, everybody.
Yeah.
Howie and Angela again to answer your questions. And I know Angela has some thoughts on her mind about what's going on, so I'm going to turn it right over to her.
All right, Mr. President. Well, I've got some of the things that are really current. I think everything is anybody that's been down here in South Carolina, shout out to my homies, Diana and Kedai and y'all that are down here in South Carolina. Anybody that's been listening to Black radio knows that all the talk is Georgia. It's Georgia, this runoff in Georgia that's happening. So, it's my understanding, and I didn't delve into this, and I'm sure, Mr. President is going to riff on this himself, where Biden is promising the $2,000 stimulus to us if the Dems win in Georgia, which is just absolutely, we should be getting it anyway. I'm sorry, folks who are supposed to be getting this, which is basically everybody. I didn't get the last stimulus. I'm not anticipating getting this one either. But for people who are supposed to be getting this stimulus, it shouldn't even be something that you use as a bargaining chip that, if y'all vote my way in Georgia, then all of a sudden, what does that even sound like? So that's happening. I know everybody's aware that, the individual currently occupying the White House has been pressuring state elections officials. I didn't listen to the tape. I don't know if you did, Howie, of, basically him begging them to find votes in Georgia that go his way. I was just like, can you be a bigger craven? Who even does that? So I don't know if you listen to it, Howie, that there's from what I could see, there was a voice transcript. I don't like to hear that man talk. So I wasn't doing that to myself. But did you listen to that?
I listened to excerpts and skimmed the transcript. Boss Tweed has got nothing on Donald Trump.
That's absolutely perfect. And so, I saw that and I'm like, this is on the level of, they should just get some ultraviolet light in there, just like in, Bleach or something. And who does it? So that was pretty heinous.
I thought that was his prescription for COVID.
It was. And as far as the level of just WTF, did you really just, and I mean, this cat is literally fine, what I saw, fine votes. What? I'm it's mind blowing. I mean, who does that? So, that's one of the things that we were thinking about. The squad and Pelosi. Yeah. I'm gonna just say our homie, our friend Peter Dow, those of y'all that follow us on Twitter. I don't know if y'all retweeted it on your thing, Howie, but in my feed, Peter Dow made it a spot on tweet. And this is someone who would know and was saying basically, with these things on the table, folks towed the line. And at the end of the day, we are still not getting what the people need. A third party is needed. And I was like, yes, threw up praise hands. So, that I am not going to take shots at the squad personally. I mean, Democrats gonna Democrat. That's all I'm gonna say. But, there's a lot of, I think, somebody's like, let Howie speak. Howie told me to speak. Thank you. So, yeah, where was I? About Peter Dow and thanking him for that tweet. That if nothing else illustrated, to this point that where people were just kind of out in left field, oh, well, we're not sure. if you didn't know, we're on the fence about whether we needed third parties. I think people are seeing that now because you want to put your faith in folks, and it's not happening. So I think that's something we'll probably be discussing later on. Something that I had on my radar, if y'all are following, you'll know that Lisa Marie Montgomery is expected to be executed in Terre Haute as at the federal facility in Terre Haute, Indiana. That is scheduled on January 12th. Yeah, and following, and I made the notes that I'm not going to go into her case. What she's accused of is horrendous. Her story is heartbreaking. So I'm not going to go into that. I don't. If y'all have the heart, you can stand up and read that, then yeah, but I don't advise it. Just know that she is up for execution on the 12th. Following that, Corey Johnson is scheduled to be executed, I believe, at the same facility, if I'm not mistaken, January 14th. And Dustin John Higgs is scheduled to be executed January 15th. So I guess we're just, this current individual occupying the White House has decided to, on his way out, do this scorched earth type thing. We're just gonna kill people. And so we're just lifting up the fact that those of us here in the Green Party understand that the state is not killing in our name. This is, this is not how we address violent crime in this country. And we have seen over the decades that the death penalty is not a deterrent to violent crime. And so we're just making folks aware that we are paying attention to this, and it is a crime against the people, and we just want to lift that up. If y'all are interested in following, I get my information from the Marshall Project. So, they're worth your following. And what I've been trying to avoid since I saw it come across my feed today is Kenosha, Wisconsin. Y'all already know, my home state, the attempted murder of Jacob Blake. Jacob Blake, from what I understand, is paralyzed from the waist down after being, the attempted murder by a Kenosha police officer. I don't have his name down because I just couldn't. Anybody that's been following this today knows that there were no charges against that officer. I don't have any words right now. I don't even know what to say. I will say that I retweeted Howie's policy paper on community control of the police, just to remind folks where we are on this, that there is a better way to be doing things, because my level of rage, I'm not gonna indulge that. So, that's our solutions. We, sharing those again, and also we want to send our love and support to Jacob Blake, to his family, to folks who have been affected, folks who have attended protests or people who have been there. And there's also a dear friend of mine shared on their Facebook feed, evidently cut and pasted, that the Blake family is asking people not to come to Kenosha protesting. It's my understanding that there are, and I'm not going to call them all right Nazis that are down there, in defense of, the murderer, the individual that walked into the crowd and shot. So they're asking people not to come down there. So if y'all are, you're in Wisconsin, just kind of watch your news feeds on your social media around that. And we're sending love to the Blake family, to Jacob Blake in particular. And the last thing that I have is I want to lift up our Imani Day celebration. The last day of Kwanzaa is Imani, which is faith. Jennifer Hyman of the Green Party Black Caucus hosted a beautiful, beautiful event on New Year's Day to lift up Black joy and Black resilience and Black, the way that we can vision, going into not just 21 and how, those of us who are in the Green Party Black Caucus, what we're going to bring to this work, but also just lifting up joy. And so for all of my Black family that's watching this, I just want y'all to be thinking ahead and just, prioritize joy in the middle of all of this dark that we're dealing with. So I'm handing it to you, Howie.
Well, I was saying on Kenosha, this DA is telling us not to believe our lying eyes, because we all saw this man shot in the back 7 times by that officer in front of his children, in front of the victim's children. And we're being told nothing happened here, no charges. And the problem here is that DAs are too close to the police. So they never prosecute these guys, even when it's on tape, unless there's massive, pressure like there was after George Floyd. And that's still going through the legal process. We don't know how that's going to end. Yeah. Now, I want people to not only talk about community control of the police, talk about every time somebody's civil rights are violated by, including bodily harm and injury and death, you have an independent federal investigation come in from the Department of Justice, because they're distant enough that they can be independent. Now, obviously, Trump's Department of Justice would have been worthless in this regard, but usually it's better than that. And at least those investigators are not tied to the local police. So we've been talking about in this community, Syracuse, and where the victim's family now lives, Florida, a Johnny Gamage law since 1995. Johnny Gamage was a guy that lived in this neighborhood I'm sitting in right now. His brother, or cousin actually, was playing for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Johnny was stopped by officers in a Pittsburgh suburb and suffocated to death. He couldn't breathe. So the Clinton administration, declined to do a civil rights investigation after the local DA. There was a prosecution, but they were let off by the jury. So the feds didn't provide civil remedy. So that's when we called for a Johnny Gamage law, which we require the feds to come in and do an investigation and prosecution if warranted. So Johnny is spelled Jonny Gammage. Just Google Johnny Gamage law, and you'll see an article by Reverend Larry Ellis, was a Green in our local, he's passed on now, about that law. That's something we need to deal with situations like this. Not just community control of the police, but the prosecutors need to be independent of the local police. Right now, the DAs and the local police work hand in glove. And that's why the police are never prosecuted. They won't police themselves. They do police themselves. That's why we need community control. And then when law enforcement is brought in, they bring in the local law enforcement that works with the cops every day. So that you don't get justice either end. So that's my thought about this thing, which is, got me pretty angry, because this is, we've had a number of police killings over the holidays, and it just doesn't stop. We had another 1,000 people killed by the police. It's like clockwork, about 1,000 every year. The Washington Post has been keeping track of this now since about the time of Michael Brown out in Ferguson. And you can go on their website and find the data. They've done a lot of research. About 1,000 a year. And crime is going down, but not the number of people killed by the police. So we got a problem there that is not being resolved. Now the question is, can we get the Biden administration to move on anything? we've got sort of now a live experiment, because we know from reporting that Biden was encouraging the House negotiators, Schumer and Pelosi, to settle for less than the Republicans were even asking for in this latest relief package, COVID relief package. And that's where the $600 check came. And the reporting was Biden thought $2,000 was too much. Now that there's an election in Georgia and it might help the Democrats, now Biden's for it. Okay, he's made a promise. Let's watch him and hold him to account. Now, the problem is $2,000 one time is not going to solve the problems of people that face, months and months of rent or mortgages because of the circumstances of this COVID crisis, lost their health care, lost their jobs, face eviction or foreclosure. We need a lot more than just $2,000 one time. But they did make that promise. I think we need to watch them. And then the other thing, with respect to Pelosi and the squad, it reminded me that AOC said one time, in any other country, she and Joe Biden would be in different parties, because most countries have proportional representation. And she's some kind of democratic socialist. And Biden, was boasting during the campaign, I beat the socialists. So, they shouldn't be in the same party. But they are, because of this crazy system. And I think I mentioned last week this was coming out. It came out in Counterpunch. I wrote an article called How Progressive Democrats Almost Reelected Trump. And, the facts are as few as 21,462 votes if they'd gone for Trump instead of Biden in Arizona, Wisconsin, and Georgia. Trump would be getting the Electoral College certified on tomorrow instead of Biden. It was that close in the Electoral College, even though Biden beat Trump in the popular vote by 7.1 million votes. So obviously we got to get rid of the Electoral College and argue that we got to replace it, not just with a national popular vote, but a ranked choice vote. Because if we don't have that, candidates like me and Angela are going to be marginalized by the corporate media. The logic of the system will say, oh, you're splitting the center and the left vote, and a less popular right wing is going to get in there. So you lefties got to go away. Drop dead. We're going to knock you off the ballot. We're going to change the law so you can't be on the ballot. If we went to ranked choice voting, we could make our argument and let the voters decide without worrying about that right winger. So that's really, I think, important going forward. And we can do that at the local level, the state level, and eventually, soon, hopefully, at the presidential level and the congressional level. That's one point I'm making there. And the other is independent left politics. What the progressives did, and this is my argument, Biden, the Democrats, should have landslid Trump. This guy lies. He's incompetent. He fails. And instead of really going after him and providing an economic program that people could believe, they were as economically tone deaf as Hillary Clinton, who talked about stronger together. And Biden talked about uniting the divided nation. And people who are losing their jobs and their businesses and their homes are like, that's nice, but at least Trump's talking about reopening the economy. And even though he lies and you really can't trust him, at least he's speaking to people's concerns. So not only did Trump almost win the Electoral College, because the progressives were silent, they didn't make demands on Biden, they didn't make their own demands publicly for Medicare for all or a Green New Deal or a $15 minimum wage. They just lined up behind Biden. The progressive voice was silenced, and they helped silence ours because they're influence leaders. These professors and pundits and podcasters were attacking Angela and me for just having we're like working people. We're saying, hey, we want Medicare for all. And they're saying, shut up, go away. We're knocking you off the ballot. They suppressed the left. They silenced the progressives and let Biden run this economically tone-deaf program like Hillary Clinton did. So they lost. They didn't win back the Senate like they expected. They lost seats in the House. They were trying to win back 9 state legislative chambers. They lost all of them and lost 3 more. So now in 30 states, the Republicans will do the redistricting in a way that overrepresents them in their state legislatures and in Congress. And Trump's vote increased by 11 million. And it increased among every demographic group except white men, black men and women, Latino men and women, Asian Americans, women. And this is after insulting those people for 5 years. I mean, the Democrats are so out of touch with working people. You know, the way I put it in that article was, you know, calling to unite the divided nation or restore our souls or whatever the hell he's talking about, may appeal to never Trump Republicans and professionals in the suburbs, but to people that are struggling. I mean, people are struggling to get food these days. That says nothing to them. And it reminds them of what the Democrats have become to look like to them. They look like that person in human resources who tells you you can't get workers' comp because the company's going to have to pay. You're going to have to go for the disability insurance, which pays 1/3 as much as state workers' comp. I mean, that's an example here in New York. I had Teamsters say that's who Hillary Clinton reminded them of at UPS. I mean, that's the kind of problem the Democrats have. They're not speaking to working people, and they're really not organizing them. You know, the Trump people had energy. They were knocking on $1 million a week. The Democrats had all this money. They thought they could buy it with advertising. So anyway, that's some of the things I talked about in that article. And I'm gonna calm down and stop, and so we can answer some questions.
I don't want you to calm down, though. I mean, everything that you said and the passion with which you said it is absolutely warranted. What is going on in this country is unacceptable. And when are we going to reach a point when people realize this is not the way we're supposed to do this? This is not how this is supposed to go. This is not acceptable. So I think your anger, you know, your emphasis is completely justified. And, you know, I'm gonna shout out my kid I saw her in the comments. So my kid is here.
Alan Cabby. Hey, Howie, what would you say is the future of the Green Party, considering the rise of progressivism again in the U.S.? Well, I've been saying the future of the Green Party is organizing strong local parties that can win thousands of local offices. We've got 110 in office. We've won 1,200 over the years. We need to be electing thousands. And that's the foundation for then electing people to state legislatures and Congress. And that's how we build the Green Party into a major party. Now, the rise of progressivism, has it really risen? You know, I'd actually like to look at some polling. What I seem to remember is that when you get away from the labels and go to specific issues like Medicare for all, and a job guarantee, and a higher minimum wage, and taxing the rich, those are majoritarian positions among people that call themselves liberals, moderates, and conservatives, which is the way the pollsters do it. So now progressivism is that a movement? Is that the Bernie Sanders movement, which called itself socialist, but was really, you know, I would say kind of a New Deal kind of liberalism or progressivism. And did that rise? I think Bernie gave it voice. And I think among young people, you know, they found a cause. So I'm just sort of thinking out loud about the rise of progressivism. But I think my main point is the progressive policy positions have been majoritarian in this country all along. And the problem is our political system doesn't reflect that. You all maybe remember they called it the oligarchy study about 2014, where they looked at about 1,800 issues before Congress and what the top 10% income-wise of the people wanted and what the median people wanted, you know, the 50% of income. And the top always got what they wanted. And so what the people want doesn't translate into public policy. And I think part of that is this two-party system where the left progressives feel they got to compromise and get behind a bunch of corporate neoliberals in order to keep out the Republican neo-fascists. And the logic of that is the neoliberals keep moving to the right, trying to get those votes in the middle. That's what Biden did. That's what Clinton did. They didn't focus on expanding their base. You know, the The Obama to Trump voters they lost, the white working class voters they lost, the white middle class voters they lost. They were focusing on the suburban professional middle class, which is really the ideological and mass base of the Democratic Party. And nobody really speaks for the working class, although Trump tries, and some of them think because he's trying, he deserves their vote. So there's a political vacuum there, but the structure of winner-take-all elections makes it difficult. But we can overcome that at the local level and build a foundation. So once we got local people elected, people are going to say, hey, we got them on city council. Why not the state ledge? Why not in Congress?
You're Andre, and if I butchered it, baby, just tell me. Dominguez Garcia. I am fuming that the DSA stole so many from us. What are your plans for getting DSA people to us?
Well, I wouldn't say they stole people from us. Some of our people went in there because there's a lot of people there. And, you want to go where the activists are. I haven't done that personally. I was there when the old Socialist Party split 3 ways over Vietnam, and DSA was in the middle, couldn't make up its damn mind. I was with the faction that was against the war, also with the faction that was for independent politics. But, maybe I'm holding old grudges because I do know within DSA now, there's more openness to independent politics, although I sense the dominant trend is to double down on electing DSA members to city councils and state legislatures and maybe Congress here and there. That seems to be where they're going, which is directing people into the Democratic Party, which I think is a real problem. I think, what the Greens need to do is not compete with DSA, but just get better organized and be a place where DSA wants to come. Because, those people who consider themselves socialists, a lot of them, they have a theory of a dirty break. The Democratic Party, the contradiction between the AOC types and the Biden types, the progressives and the corporate types, will lead to a split in the party. I've been hearing that since the 1960s. I think what you'll get is, a leakage. And then when the Greens are really strong, a flood of the progressives out. But first, we got to build our own thing. So it's worth people coming to. What do you think, Angela?
And, what you said, and also to piggyback, because I'm seeing people asking, like in the chat, would you work with DSA? Would you work with PSL? And we've said it 1,000,008 times, and I'm guessing we're going 1,000,008 more, that anybody who, folks, groups on the left that want to work with us, we're open to working with them. We've said that. We've been very explicit. We were explicit about that during our campaign. We have said that since. So, as long as people, understand what our principles are as Green Party members, what we stand for. And these are the things that you're riding for too. I mean, I understand we're not going to all ideologically meet on the same things, but those places where we intersect, we absolutely are willing to work with folks. And we've been very clear about that. Hey, in the mood for real history, welcome, because I don't think we've seen you yet. What advice would you give to my students? They're an educator. What advice would you give to my students who are so passionate about what they can do to get active in their communities to help push a progressive message going into 2022 and 2024?
Well, I'll start by saying I would urge them to be part of an organization and not just a keyboard warrior, on the internet and in social media, because that collective work involves, figuring out things together, how we're going to work together, and as we develop plans and statements and so forth. Those discussions make us smarter when we do get to the public. So that's one thing. So I think get involved in a group. And then I would tell them never underestimate what they can do as youth. You know, a lot of older folks they'll speak up and like then the conversation will go on like the young folks didn't speak. And I can remember that when I was young. And I would just say, don't let that bother you. And if you have to, form a youth group and, you know, act on your own. And, you know, I said they should be part of a group. Obviously, social media is part of the media now. And a lot of these young people are really good at that. So I would say, you know, that's another place where they can push a progressive message.
I want to say it's Johan or Joan Santana 6. Now, if I butchered your name, baby, just let me know. What are your thoughts? And I saw this earlier. What are your thoughts on electoralism versus revolution? I'm just going to go ahead on and say it. From where I'm standing, this country is not, we are not anywhere near ready for a revolution. We don't have a left that is united. We don't have a left that is strong enough to push something like that. We're not there. You know, I know there's a lot of folks in leftist circles around the country that, you know, I've seen bandying that word around, and it's like that meme. I don't think that word thinks what you think it means. Whereas it's like, this is not something we discuss lightly. So, you know, we're not ready, quite frankly. But Howie, what are your thoughts?
I don't think they should be counterposed. I mean, revolutionaries like Lenin had a whole policy on running in elections. So did Marx and Engels. The reality is, if we get a reform government going in this country, we'll probably face what the reform governments in Italy faced in the 1920s, when Mussolini's fascist movement was supported by the big bourgeoisie, and they organized, you know, these brown shirts, or were they black shirts in that country? I forget, them mixed up with the Nazis. But anyway, a mass of right-wing militias that were, and they had the military. So they conjured that up to crush a reform movement. More recently in Chile, in the early 70s, there was a right-wing movement built. It included the military. They got the middle class on their side, which was its mass base. And so then they violently repressed a reformist government. And that's when the question of revolution comes up. What does the left do in response? Is it organized for mass strikes to paralyze the country and exercise power from the bottom up? And if you study the Chilean situation, you had a far left that was pushing land occupations by the Indians and peasants and factory occupations. And the coalition government, which included the socialists, the communists, and the radicals, they weren't for that. They were for a much more gradualist constitutional thing. So there, the left was not prepared to defend itself when the right attacked, because they had different strategies. So all I'm saying is, I think Angela's right. You know, we aren't even, the left doesn't have a foothold in the electoral system. I mean, come on, we're not going to, you know, even, you know, the Russian Revolution, they didn't, you know, take over from the Mensheviks until there'd been a whole process. So the idea that you're getting ready for some kind of armed revolution, it's really the arms and that kind of conflict is defending what the people wanted, and the establishment, the capitalists, wouldn't let them have. So I think it's a process, and elections are definitely part of the process. And in the end, the real ruling class probably won't let us just legally, peacefully transform towards some kind of democratic socialism. They're going to have extra legal reaction, and we got to be prepared with our own direct action to defend, you know, what the legal process was moving toward.
And looking at what Mikey Ross and maybe Potatoes are talking about here in the chat is getting the population, you know, the populace, to see themselves as the working class and stop fighting amongst themselves. And we've seen this, this has happened before where you had all of these different groups come together and say, you know what, we're being exploited, by the ruling class, and they threw in race as a bone to keep people apart. It's like, okay, you understand class, but hey, let me throw this thing in there to keep you fighting with each other. Let me give you just this little bit more of an incentive, than this person. And, it's been a wedge. So I think class consciousness, like y'all are saying in the chat, we absolutely have to work on class consciousness, but we also have to understand and be very explicit in the ways that race has been used in this country to prevent class cohesion and class solidarity. And a lot of us don't want to talk about that, and I think that's part of the discussion that's going to happen.
Strong Flower.
Hey, boo.
Hi, Mr. Howie and Miss Angela. Are you familiar with Rashid Buttar and his position on the COVID health situation? If so, just wanted to hear your guys' thoughts. TY. Not sure what that means, but
thank you.
Oh, thank you. You're welcome. I'm not familiar with Rashid Buttar's position on the COVID health situation. Sorry, I know he's out there in San Francisco and wanted to run against Pelosi, but that's about it.
Yeah, I have to concur with the president here. I'm not. I know who Dr. Buttar is, but I'm not familiar with his position on COVID to where I could speak on it. Zeke, hey boo. What do you think about the Google union?
I just heard about it, and I'm for everybody who's working having a union so they can collectively bargain and protect their interests. So I think it's a good idea.
Hey, Potatoes. Maybe Potatoes is asking, do you believe a steady state economy is inevitable, or is infinite economic growth indeed possible on a finite planet?
Well, the second part of the question is no. No, it's like saying, you can have cancer growing in your body and it's not going to hurt your body and deprive it of what it needs. Because that's what economic growth is in the biosphere. It grows without any sense of balance and reciprocity to the whole system and eventually destroys its host. I don't believe a steady state economy is inevitable because we first got to overthrow capitalism in order to have an economy where the major means of production are socially owned and democratically administered so we can plan to meet the basic needs of everybody within ecological limits in a steady state dynamic balance with nature. And so that requires an ecological socialism that we've been talking about. Then a steady state economy is possible. Under capitalism, it's not, because growth is structured into capitalism. Every capitalist firm has to grow or die in the competition for survival. And so that growth dynamic is structured into capitalism. So we got to move beyond that system to ecological socialism in order to have a steady state sustainable economy.
Exactly, Potatoes. Capitalism is grow or die. And Howie, they're liking your answer. I saw this in the chat. Talon Summers is asking, and if it's Talon, like I said, y'all correct me on this. Do you plan on electing DSA and Green Party members to ultra local positions? I think the reason why the party hasn't thrived is because they only run candidates for higher office. No, we don't. No, we don't. We have quite a few folks who won local office this year. And for the people who may not have won the particular elections that they were in, they ran. So, saying that the Green, and we see this a lot where people are like, oh, you only run candidates for higher office. It's not true. Not at all. And one of the things that we've been very explicit about is making sure that people are able to run for local offices because they're attainable. And local, we've said local change, making change locally is arguably a lot more important than, running for higher office. Because these are the offices that touch people's lives every day and in, the most intimate ways. So no, we do run people and encourage people to run for local positions. Howie, because you're the OG. So
Yeah, everything you said is true. The only thing is we need to run more people for local offices. We usually, run 100 or 200. We should be running and electing thousands. There's 500,000 elected offices in this country. Most of them are local. A lot of them are non-competitive, or there's only one candidate running. There are a lot of opportunities for the left to get into local government and show what it can do. And there's no excuse for that. And, we got to be serious. We got to be principled. We got to be committed. Being on the left isn't just showing up at a demonstration every once in a while and then going home. It's got to be sustained activity. When you make commitments, you got to follow through. And that's the kind of thing you got to do to get elected and to stay elected. And, I just wish a lot of people on the left would take themselves more seriously. I think a lot of people, it's about, performative politics. They're like, it's like going to church on Sunday. You confess if you're Catholic, or, you ask for forgiveness if you're Protestant. And then, you go about your business all week sinning. No, we got to be, committed, on a sustained basis. Not sure the religious analogy worked, but that's what came to mind.
I'm here for it. Stephanie Collins, have you talked about whistleblowers laws and the effects on journalist Julian Assange extradition? I came in late. We haven't discussed that yet.
Well, first of all, the Espionage Act has been used too many times since Obama became president, and also by Trump, in this case against Assange, to attack people who are whistleblowers, or in Assange's case, a publisher of information that was leaked to him out of the government. Same thing the Washington Post and New York Times do almost every day. So we need stronger whistleblower laws and protections, because the whistleblowers are going to jail instead of being protected. And it's not just the big names like Edward Snowden and Julian Assange. Reality Winner, this guy from the FBI that was supposed to be monitoring Somalis up in Minnesota and protested how Islamophobia and anti-Black racism was being misused by the FBI against those people. And he tried to go through proper channels, and they slapped him down, and then he went to the press and they accused him of violating the Espionage Act. There are so many cases. I wrote a lot of them up it's on our website in some of the statements we made. But yes, whistleblower laws got to be strengthened. And the problem with the decision the judge made about Assange was he's not going to be extradited pending appeal by the U.S. government, because the judge thought the U.S. prison system and how Assange would be treated could kill him and yes, make him commit suicide, which is an indictment of our prison system. But the judge accepted all the arguments of the government that it was a political case. Assange is a political prisoner. They objected to him politically. And in criminalizing him publishing information like, the Iraq war logs and the collateral murder video. They are, criminalizing investigative journalism. And that's the real danger. And this judge's opinion basically confirmed the Trump administration's argument on that, which should have us all worried. So we got to stay vigilant on press freedom issues in the Assange case.
Coach Mike, what are your thoughts on a resource-based economy? Can we ever get there, or is it a pipe dream?
Well, I think every economy is based on resources, natural resources, human resources. So I'm not sure what the question means. Maybe it means a sustainable economy where the resources, we rely primarily on renewable resources and renewable energy instead of depletable resources and energy. Or when we do bring in the depletable, usually mineral resources, we recycle them instead of, using them once and throwing them away. Leah Anderson, what are y'all's thoughts on folks thinking that we only have a chance to change things through being Democrats? How do we get the progressive Dems? I think we got to show them we can win. And, I think I make my arguments. That article I was talking about was in the Counterpunch on Friday. But when I sent it to the editor, I said, I don't know if the progressive Dems are ready to hear this or consider this analysis, even though Biden, Schumer, and Pelosi are giving them reasons every day. Sometimes, and a good example is worth 1,000 great pamphlets and essays and leaflets. So I think, how do we get them? We show them that the Greens can win, and it starts with these local races. And the idea that we can change things with the Democrats, study history. It goes back to when the populists cross-endorsed William Jennings Bryan, an opportunistic move that killed the People's Party. And, we can take the history. Since then, it's been about 125 years. And as a lot of us often say, the Democratic Party is where progressive social movements go to die.
And I think a lot of people, because I see this question a lot too, is like, how do you get them to come over here? It's like, they know what we stand for. These people are not aware of where we are. If you choose to be where you are, it's because that's what serves you. It's not like, you don't, like, these folks are just duped into being Democrats and we just need to reach in and snatch them and save them. That's not the case. These folks know where they're, they've invested their time, they've invested their energy, they've invested, their resources in this party because they believe that they can do something from the inside out with it.
Or as Joshua Hellman suggests in the chat, ask them how they're liking President Sanders.
Mic drop. Dylan Linzer, hey boo. Do you think it's possible to get disgruntled Trump supporters to the left?
I think it's possible to reach working class and middle class people that have voted for Trump because they have economic grievances with a progressive economic program. And by speaking to those people and listening to them, we need to do what we've talked about here before, deep canvassing, where you have, a 15-minute conversation with people where you listen, hear what their issues are, and then link them to the things you're working on. And People's Action actually did a lot of that. They're doing a lot of that. It's worth investigating that. Last I heard, they were trying to reach some of the Trump people in Georgia for this election. It'll be interesting to see how that turned out. But I know in upstate New York, a Republican area outside the cities, a lot of rural people, farmers who have to take second jobs, you know, at UPS where I worked. They are not, they don't like Trump as a person, but they felt like he was going to shake things up and, you know, might address their issues. And they didn't think the Democrats would, because the Democrats weren't talking about their issues, you know. And I go back to the, you know, I call it economically tone deaf campaigns by Clinton and then Biden and the whole Democratic Party. I mean, why can't they landslide the Republicans who are, they lie, they're incompetent, they're corrupt as hell. I remember when a lot of Republicans and conservatives flipped on Nixon is when they found out he wasn't paying his taxes. Why can't they make that an issue with Trump? I mean, Trump has got targets all over him. And, you know, the Democrats couldn't stay fixed on anyone, and they let Trump like tweet something and change the subject every day. But, you know, the Democrats had a, you know, they had a voice too, and they didn't come out with a clear message, particularly concerning those people. So, yeah, now, you know, you look at the Trump base, there's a white Christian nationalist base in the evangelicals who, you know, they're the old, you know, Southern Dixiecrats. They are like an American Taliban. They're very socially conservative. We're not going to reach them. But there are a lot of people, and, you know, look at the his bottom line, you know, support during the polling, his whole administration was about 40%. Well, what's 40% of the 74 million votes he got? 30 million people, that leaves about 40 million people that may be reachable on economic grounds. And I would also say value grounds, because a lot of these people, they feel threatened by immigrants, people of color, women. And the argument we can make to them is, hey, the immigrants didn't take your job to Mexico, the corporations did. You know, there's a discussion that can be had. We haven't had it. The left hasn't had it because they've written off these people, mostly out of rural America. And because they've been written off by the Democrats, they feel like the Democrats got nothing for them. So, yeah, I think, you know, there's a vacuum there the left can fill, because I think we have something relevant to say to people that are struggling economically in rural and small town America.
Psychology. How optimistic are you in regarding future jobs for career entrees or career entry, I think you're saying, baby? COVID has devastated small businesses, and restaurants and corporations only want to hire part-time. Even college is iffy to hope for.
Well, I'm pessimistic until the labor movement gets its damn act together and starts organizing people. So whether you're talking about small business or big business, until workers are organized to collectively bargain and protect their interests, they're going to be at the mercy of employers. And so the labor movement's got to organize too. And Jane McAlevey has been putting out some books basically pointing out that instead of organizing their own rank and file, which is the power of the labor movement, they hire consultants to do PR campaigns. And as Angela and I know, having been in unions, that's because the officers don't want the members organized, because the members might elect new officers. But it's up to the rank and file to deal with that in the unions. And if you don't have a union, you know, start organizing one. And I would say in this administration, remember, Biden promised what they call now the PRO Act, some labor law reforms, including card check recognition. That's something, you know, maybe we can get that, and that would make organizing a little easier. It's one thing that I think maybe we can keep an eye on and pressure this new administration to enact. But we'll see. First 100 days are coming. I've been thinking I'm going to make a list of all the things they coulda, shoulda, and promised to do. And after 100 days, give them a report card. We'll see what they do.
Versus what we would have done, because we would have did it.
And much more than they even promised.
See that. Stephanie Collins, hey, darling. If Georgia loses both seats, the Dems have full dictatorship. I like how you said that. Full dictatorship of the government. We are in trouble with all policy control. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think she's saying if the Democrats win both seats, they will have control of both branches of the legislature, both houses of Congress and the presidency. And we are in trouble with all policy control in one party. I think that depends on the party. The judicial branch is still in the hands of Republicans. I mean, something like 14 out of the last 19 Supreme Court justices were appointed by Republicans, very conservative. And even the Democrats that were appointed, there was a study in the early 2000s that said Clinton's appointments were more conservative than Reagan and Bush ones were, particularly on economic issues. They were more pro-corporate. So we're in trouble with the structure of government we got. I mean, the Senate doesn't represent the people equally. The Electoral College doesn't represent the people equally. And we got, instead of electing a new government in elections, we elect part of the government. And so you really can't make a clean sweep in an election. So it's kind of holds on to the status quo. With a two-party system, it's a zero-sum game, so they tend to gridlock. They'd rather spend time dragging down the other party than getting anything done. So there are a lot of reasons we're in trouble.
And just thinking about like representation in government, I mean, just to like illustrate your point, my representation in government is Lindsey Graham. There's nothing else I can say. That's what I have as my voice in government. Anyway, the boss is letting us know that both Dems races in Georgia right now are within 1 or 2 points, and it's very telling that it's even this close. So,
telling, what does it tell us?
I mean, how is it? How is that even a thing?
Well, from my point of view, those two Republicans are so damn corrupt. I mean, they're insider stock trading and all that. I mean, that's, they're kleptocrats. They're kleptocratic plutocrats. Why couldn't the Democrats cream them? The average white person that votes Republican doesn't like getting ripped off. But, I didn't follow how they campaigned closely. Not sure what the messaging was. Really, all I heard was they came out for the $2,000 check in the last day or two, which just sounds real opportunistic to me. Where were they, this whole period? So anyway, I guess we'll find out. I'm not surprised that it's close, and probably won't be, we probably won't know for a while who actually won, because I don't know what the paper ballot counting situation is there. They're probably provisional ballots. And they got to, make sure all the precincts reported correctly. It's going to take a while.
Violet, I love you, darling. I am not challenging Lindsey Graham. I am openly socialist. This is South Carolina. No. I'm just, I said that to illustrate, when we're talking about our voice in government and just how jacked up this system is, it's like, no, that's not my representation. That's not me. So no, I'm not challenging Lindsey Graham. Not in South Carolina, not, I am not going to defect to the Democratic Party just to appeal to people. It's not going to happen. So it is what it is. They need to, perhaps, the person who challenged him this year may be thinking of running again. And if so, I hope he comes out stronger. Just because I'm petty. What are your final thoughts, Mr. President?
Well, yeah, Lindsey Graham got 6 years. So you got a lot of time to change your mind.
I'm still going to be socialist.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm not going to bite my tongue about that. So unless we have like 6 years where people's thought about us changes, like, they're ready for like what we're talking about.
Yeah, well, campaign is one of the ways we can help change people's minds. So anyway, I hadn't collected a last thought, but I keep coming back to the carnage out here with COVID. It's, we're over 350,000 dead. At the rate we're going, it's going to be nearly 400,000 by the time Biden's inaugurated. They can't even get the damn vaccines that already got produced in people's arms. I mean, like we said when we got the nomination, the two governing parties are presiding over a failed state. And obviously Trump is totally incompetent. But they ain't so competent in some of these Democratic states, getting the vaccines they do have around the state and into people's arms. So that's what's on my mind. People, please, hide out from the COVID, take the proper precautions, wash your hands, social distance, mask up, and hopefully you will get through this. I mean, COVID, even people that get through the worst symptoms have a lot of lingering systems. Sometimes it's in the lungs, sometimes it's in the brain, the nervous system. This is a new disease that, our bodies have never faced before. So please be careful out there.
And just to answer, Tellen Summers, who's, I saw what you said in the chat earlier about it, being essentially political suicide to be open about discussing communism or socialism. It's only political suicide if you're a Democrat. Part of the reason that part of the thing that I enjoy about being an independent is I'm not beholden to anybody about what I support. I'm not beholden to anybody about my stance. I don't have to tap dance to please anybody. I am a socialist. So until our electorate is ready for that, it is what it is. And I'm not backing down from that. So I want y'all to stay safe, as Howie said. I want y'all to guard your peace. There is a whole lot that is happening. We had a lot of really dark news at the top of this program tonight. I'm anticipating the closer that we get to this inauguration is going to just get louder. And, the calls for change are going to get even louder. So y'all guard your peace as much as you can, and just get ready, for what's coming. And just know that you're not in this fight. I think even more than anything else, we're not in this by ourselves. And I think it's hard. Hey, Robin. Hey, boo. I think it's hard, in the midst of all of this stuff that's happening, you feel very alone. Just remember that you're not. I'm looking at our green fam in the chat, but also people in your real time. Just know that you're not struggling by yourself, and stay safe. And also, I want y'all to keep your heads up.
So now I got to comment on that political suicide thing. I would say it's suicide not to advance a socialist program, because there are no solutions under capitalism to an economy that is structured to grow until it kills the planet. That its growth is structured around exploitation, where we get a fixed wage and the surplus value we create is taken by the owners and creates more and more inequality. where the competition breeds war, and where the concentrated wealth in the hands of the plutocrats undermines democracy. We need economic democracy and socialism in order to have real political democracy. So we don't have solutions. And the idea that we're isolated. Look, Gallup now says 39% of all Americans have a favorable view of socialism, including 51% of people under 40 years old. We would be stupid not to be part of that conversation. Now, you look at the Gallup poll, they kind of define socialism as social programs like Medicare for all or tuition-free public college, which is part of socialism, but it's not the classic program of social ownership and democratic administration of the economy, which you need to get the billionaire class, get their wealth democratized, because as long as the billionaires have that concentrated wealth, it translates into concentrated political power. That's one argument why the Greens need to be in that socialist discussion. The other is ecological socialism. You know, classic socialism was about increasing production to end poverty. We're so damn productive now, poverty is not a problem. The problem is we're killing the planet. So we got to talk about an ecological socialism that meets everybody's basic needs in harmony with the natural environment, within ecological limits. And this is what the Green contribution can be to that socialist conversation and to the broader political conversation among the people. So I don't think it's political suicide. I think it's an opportunity. When I was coming up in the 50s, yeah, socialism was a conversation stopper. In the 2010s and 2020s, now it's a conversation starter. So I think we should be part of it.
And I'm going to end it with this because first off, now y'all see why I voted for this cat for president right here. But also, Kenda Z. Ruap over here, and I know I butchered your name, baby, correct me. But the quote is, capitalism is a pyramid scheme built on genocide and resource theft that ain't sustainable. End.